Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group number 1. So for our study, we has named it as the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the psychological well-being of students in Malaysian University, which is a web-based cross-sectional survey that aims to determine the extent of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on students at the university level in relation to their mental health. So next, I will continue with the abstract, which the purpose of this study is to find out the changes that brought when the COVID-19 hit Malaysia and its impact on university students in this country by making an online survey that contains two types of questions that are independent variables and dependent variables that also combine open data collection and closed data collections. So this study has involved a total of 150 respondents from various universities, which has been observed where the psychological well-being of some university students has been affected when COVID-19 hit the country because everything has become online. Move to the introduction. The 2019 coronavirus disease, or better known as COVID-19, is actually an infection caused by a novel coronavirus known as severe respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2 or SARS-CoV-2 that commonly called as COVID-2019 nCoV that causes respiratory tract infection. So following the spread of this epidemic, the Malaysian government has implemented a movement restriction known as the Movement Control Order or MCO. And with the spread of COVID-19, it has had a direct impact on the Malaysian education system, where the Malaysian Ministry of Education and the Malaysian Ministry of Higher Education have taken the decisions to close schools and higher education centers in the country by changing an online learning method called virtual learning.
Alright, thank you. Now we are moving on to the brief literature review. As we all know, based on observation that have been made, the study aims to find out in the total about the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on psychological well-being in student cohort of all the university institutions available in Malaysia. So in this context, we have been discussed and we think that we will use the cross-sectional survey technique in the period immediately after the first closing with the assistance of the administration of a questionnaire in a form that has been constructed using the personal accounts of students involved in the undergraduate course in all types of learning institutions in Malaysia. So in this regard too, we use several scales, especially the anxiety self-assessment scale, or S, to assess involvement, anxiety symptoms and depressive symptoms as a sample. And then we have a discussion on the variables. So as a result, we will study the reliability of this student survey with the help of a technique called the Zoom Self-Rating Depression Scale, which is the SDS, but refers on student in universities at Malaysia. And this will help a lot. Of things, and this will provide the new result, which is some of the survey that we will have been made. And so as we can see from the conceptual framework, this is our dependent variable, which is the level of anxiety and depression, and the independent variables, which is firstly general characteristic of students, feelings and fears about pandemic, and lastly personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia. So as we know, the conceptual framework acts as a vision for almost all researchers of the literature on the best way to define the phenomenon. So in this case, the observation of a particular field of research and the views of other researchers shows the way that what we need to be done while conducting the study. In addition, A conceptual framework can be classified as a visual representation that acts to visualize the expected relationship between cause and effect in all contexts involved. So in turn, it can also help in being a researcher about a variable being conducted. And finally, it works as a whole as the researcher's plan for conducting the investigation. And last but not least, we also make decision about the hypothesis, which is the first one. There's a relationship between the general characteristic of students that related towards the level of anxiety and depression among students. Next, we have another hypothesis, which is there's a relationship between feelings and fears about the pandemic that related towards the level of anxiety and depression among students. And we also make another hypothesis, which is there is a relationship between personal concerns regarding university studies that related in Malaysia towards the level of anxiety and depression among students. So this hypothesis will actually help us a lot in terms of to find some results in data analysis and so on. So this will help to change the percentage, maybe about the result on what we must have, what we must to do in terms of to find another way in outcome the problems.
Now, we move to the methodology. First one is population. In terms of population and the number of students, there are approximately 200,000 total university students across all of our respondents. Most students are enrolled in undergraduate programs, with a smaller number of students in graduate programs such as banking, engineering, science, computer, occupational safety and health, quantity surveyor, information management, pharmacy, and others. With the internet facility and technology provided nowadays, we are able to survey all respondents from various universities in Malaysia. This will allow us to obtain a larger sample size and a more reliable set of data to answer our research question. This will also ensure that the current findings can be generalized to a wider population. For sampling, there is about 384 sample size. From the population of our respondents, we do not reach the required sample size until the end, but we have enough data to produce a valid statistical analysis. In addition, for this group project, we are required to find only 150 respondents. Therefore, our group members succeed to find the total of respondents needed to complete our survey. We are using the systematic sample technique by selecting every 150 respondents that fill in the form early. The systematic sample technique is a sampling method in which the sample is designed in advance. This will help us to reduce the bias in our survey data. By using the systematic sample technique, we are able to select our respondents in advance without any issues. Next, we use the questionnaire for our research instrument. We use it as the online survey method used in the study to collect data from respondents due to its ability to reach a large number of people quickly without limit. The survey was administered through Google Forms and took approximately 5 minutes to complete. All responses are anonymous and confidential. I am the one who constructed the platform, and the survey forms editing access is shared among my group members. The survey link was given out through Gmail, Telegram, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Data collection. The total survey question is 30, containing 4 parts, whereby part 1, 2, 3 is the independent variable and part 4 is the dependent variable question. In part 1, we are using a nominal scale for some questions such as age, gender, name of the university, of course, and others. Respondents were allowed to answer yes or no, male or female, and the category of the answer was provided based on the question in the survey. Other than that, we also provided the close-ended question, which asks about the course of study of the respondents. For parts 2 to 4, we are using the Likert scale to show how much respondents agree or disagree with each statement. A 5-point Likert scale with an anchor of 1 for strongly disagreeing and 5 for strongly agreeing was given to the respondents to use in measuring the variables.
The next one, I'm going to talk about the data analysis. This is the first section from the questionnaire. The first one is demographic information. I will talk about gender. This is the gender frequency based on 150 respondents. Both gender has different frequency. As the male, 44 respondents and female has 106 respondents. The percentage for males is 29.3% and the percentage for female is 70.7%. The difference between both gender just in range 41.1%. Based on our research, about 21 respondents represent age 16 to 20 years old with percentage 14%, 121 respondents represent age 20 to 25 years old with percentage 80.7%, and about 8 respondents represent age above 30 years old with percentage 5.3%. In table of the name of the university in Malaysia, 122 respondents with the percentage 81.3% are from UiTM. UKM are 3 respondents with the percentage 2%, UPM are 2 respondents with the percentage 1.3%, Polytechnic are 5 respondents with the percentage 3.3%, OPSI are 2 respondents with the percentage 1.3%, and 16 respondents with the percentage 10.7% are from the other university. The highest percentage are 81% from the UiTM and the lowest percentage are 1.3% from UPM and OPSI. For table year of course, year 1 there were 21 respondents with 14%, year 2 54 respondents with 36%, year 3 36 respondents with 24%, year 4 23 respondents with 15.3%, and year 5 with 16 respondents with 10.7%. The highest percentage are from year 2, 54 respondents with 36%, while the lowest are from year 5, 16 respondents with 10.7%. The descriptive statistic between the variable age, gender, name of university, and year of course. The mean variable is between 1.71 to 2.73. Respondents' years of course are the highest mean 2.73 with the standard deviation 1.198, followed by respondents' age with mean 1.91 with the standard deviation 0.433. Next, the respondent's name of the university with mean 1.73 with the standard deviation 1.653, and the last one is gender's respondent with mean 1.71 with the standard deviation 0.457. Variables age and gender scored standard deviation lower than 1, which indicates that the scores were clustered closely around the mean. The other two variables, which is year of course and name of university, scored standard deviation higher than 1, which indicates that scores were clustered far from mean. The next one is frequency of user satisfaction. First is the frequency of returning home. 117 respondents choose yes with the percentage is 78%, and 33 respondents choose no with the percentage is 22%. Next is the frequency of living alone during the lockdown. In figure showed that 9 of the respondents choose yes with the percentage being 6%. 141 of the respondents choose no with the percentage is 94%. The frequency of doing physical activity during the lockdown in the figure showed that 87 of the respondents choose yes with the percentage being 58%. 63 of the respondents choose no with the percentage being 42%. The next one is the frequency of COVID-19 symptom. In the figure showed that 34 of the respondents choose yes with the all items for construct were assessed using a nominal scale. respondents were allowed to answer yes or no. According to the figure, the mean variable is between 1.22 to 1.94. Leave alone during the lockdown is the highest mean, 1.94, with the standard deviation 0.238, followed by COVID-19 symptom with mean 1.77 with the standard deviation 0.420. Next, do physical activity during the lockdown with mean 1.42 with the standard deviation 0.495, and lastly, return home with a mean 1.22 with the standard deviation is 0.416. All the variables have scored standard deviation lower than 1, which indicates that the scores were clustered closely around the mean. We will go to the next part, which is inferential statistic. The first one is reliability test. According to the table, that is Cromba Alpha. Cromba Alpha is one element that decides whether your questionnaire is legitimate or not for your research. Hence, this reliability test aims to identify the dependability of the research equipment. There are 21 items under the scale of all variables. For initialization, good data need to be maximum at 0.449 and not above it. This is not a good data, as there is data that is above 0.449, which is I feel that everything is alright and nothing bad will happen. At Cromba Alpha, if item deleted where the data is 0.863, thus it is not consistent and cannot be accepted. The next one is significant difference. Based on the result, the t-test of the level anxiety and depression indicates the t-test is lower than 1.5, which is 0.01, and it can be said that the null hypothesis is rejected. Therefore, it can be stated that the level of anxiety and depression is 1. If not, then it can be stated that is one of the important things in changing the development of problems that will be faced by students. Not only that, the level of anxiety and depression is statistically lower than the stated score 30, which is 149, 0.01. So the above will represent the dependent variables as stated for all the samples that will be made. Next is general characteristic of student. The level of anxiety and depression is statistically lower than the stated score, which is 14 to 149, which is 0.01. Other than that, the feelings and fears about pandemic among students. The level of anxiety and depression is statistically lower than the stated score 46, which is 149, 0.01. And the personal concerns regarding university studies among students in Malaysia. Not only that, the level of anxiety and depression is statistically lower than the stated score 50, which is 149, 0.01. The next part is the correlation. Pearson correlation of general characteristic of students and feelings and fears about pandemic was discovered to be a moderate positive correlation, statistically significant, which are the Pearson correlation 0.093 and the significant 0.257. This means that the general characteristic of students can lead to higher feelings and fears about pandemics. Other than that, general characteristic of students and personal concern regarding university studies in Malaysia was discovered to be a moderate positive correlation, statistically significant, which are the Pearson correlation 0.004 and this significant 0.957. This means that the general characteristic of students can lead to higher personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia. Then, general characteristic of students and the level of anxiety and depression was discovered to be a negative correlation, statistically significant, which are their Pearson correlation, a negative 0.011 and significant 0.893. This means that the general characteristic of students and the level of anxiety and depression is a near perfect relationship. Pearson correlation of feelings and fears about pandemic and general characteristic of students was discovered to be a moderate positive correlation, statistically significant, with the Pearson correlation 0.093 and the significant tail 0.257. This means that an increased number of feelings and fears about pandemics can lead to a higher general characteristic of students. Other than that, the feelings and fears about pandemic and personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia were discovered to be a moderate positive correlation, statistically significant, with the Pearson correlation 0.732 and the significant 2 tails 0.001. This means that an increased number of feelings and fears about pandemics can lead to a higher personal concerns regarding to the University of Studies in Malaysia. Next is the feelings and fears about pandemic, and the level of anxiety and depression was discovered to be a negative correlation statistically significant, with the Pearson correlation negative 0.049 and the significance two-tail which is 0.554. This means that feelings and fears about pandemics and the level of anxiety and depression is near a perfect relationship. Pearson correlation of personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia and general characteristics of students were discovered to be a moderate positive correlation statistically significant, which are their Pearson correlation 0.004 and the significant two-tails 0.957. This means that an increased number of the personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia can lead to a higher general characteristic of students. Other than that, personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia and feelings and fears about pandemic were discovered to be a moderate positive correlation statistically significant, which are the Pearson correlation 0.732 and the significant two-tail 0.001. This means that an increased number of the personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia can lead to a higher feelings and fears about pandemic. Personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia and the level of anxiety and depression were discovered to be of moderate positive correlation statistically significant, which their Pearson correlation 0.001 and the significant two-tails 0.989. This means that an increased number of the personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia can lead to a higher level of anxiety and depression. Pearson correlation of the level of anxiety and depression and general characteristic of student was discovered to be a negative correlation statistically significant, which are the Pearson correlation negative 0.011 and the significant two-tails 0.893. This means that the level of anxiety and depression and general characteristic of student is a near perfect relationship. Next one is the level of anxiety and depression and feelings and fears about pandemic were discovered to be a negative correlation statistically significant, which are their Pearson correlation negative 0.049 and the significant two-tails 0.554. This means that the level of anxiety and depression and feelings and fears about pandemic is a near perfect relationship. Other than that, the level of anxiety and depression and personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia were discovered to be of moderate positive correlation statistically significant, which are the Pearson correlation 0.001 and the significant two-tails 0.989. This means that an increased numbers of the level of anxiety and depression can lead to a higher personal concerns regarding university studies in Malaysia.
Lastly, for the conclusion, in conclusion, the COVID-19 pandemic has completely changed the life of the community, which has left a significant impact on all students, especially university students, from the emotional and learning aspects of their learning environment, which many university students are affected by their psychological aspects such as stress, depression, anxiety, panic, and so on. And they have to live the new norm, which is online learning, which seems to be simple, but it is difficult for a large number of university students. But such things are inevitable. So therefore, online learning needs to be adapted by students by optimizing and using available resources in the best way possible, such as using internet facilities. And also the Malaysian government also needs to make efforts to provide facilities for students to continue their online learning, such as providing unlimited free internet to all students. So that is all from us. Thank you for your time.